Good evening. Welcome to the Fitchburg Municipal Airport Commission meeting. It's February 23rd, 2022, 6:04. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Let me introduce the commissioners in attendance. Rich Liberatore to my left.
Good evening.
Myself, Clayton Raymond, and David Genesi is with us via the internet. And we also have Peter Kettle here, airport manager, and persons in attendance, Matt Karen and Jackie Marks from Gale Associates. And we have Mary Jo Bohart from the Development Commission, and Deb Silva from Fitchburg Airport, Airport Manager's Assistant. Thank you all for coming. All right, let's get started. Previous month's minutes approval. Unfortunately, we have some people in sick bay, so the minutes were not available, so we will not be voting on the minutes. We'll table that till next meeting. Action items from previous minutes. We don't have a list because we don't have the minutes. Does anyone have anything on their plate that they would like to discuss from last month? I'm open.
To be honest, I think everything's going to be covered as we go through again, as usual.
Fair enough. Item 2, correspondence to the commission. Peter, do you have anything
Nothing.
you'd like to share?
Nothing.
I did not receive anything either. Thank you. Item 3, right to Gale. Reviewing ongoing work. Item A, airport master plan. We're ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So if you recall, at the last meeting, we reviewed Chapter 5, the facility requirements chapter, subsequently forwarded that chapter to FAA and MassDOT for review and comment. We are waiting for a little bit of guidance on one issue with respect to the utility pole obstructions off of the 3-2 end. Again, just waiting. FAA flight procedures indicated that lighting those poles should satisfy their requirements on their end, but just waiting to hear from FAA other lines of business to make sure that there is concurrence with that before making a recommendation in Chapter 5, and then getting that draft, back to the commission for public review. Anyone have any questions about that?
Yeah, I do. I was surprised to see those poles to be in the obstruction zone. If we do need to light them, does the airport have to pay for those lights and pay for the energy to keep the lights on? And how does all that work? And how did they become an obstruction when we thought just the tall poles were going to be involved?
So those utility poles have always been known as obstructions. So back in, I don't know if it was 2017 when we did an aeronautical survey, I think it was originally with, at the time, I think it was Cole East, now Blue Sky. Those were flagged, so they're utility poles that have all the wires that are connecting to the other utility poles, so on and so forth. At the time, we were doing obstruction removal for the runway 3-2 end and the runway 14 end. It was cost prohibitive to look to bury those utilities, so the thought had always been to include that or potentially light them with a future FAA grant. But yes, similar to, I guess, the obstruction light that is up a little bit further on Crawford Street, that actually lights a corner of one of the buildings that we got an easement over with the AC unit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Peter, the airport is on the hook for those costs of running those lights, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be a similar situation, same thing, obstruction lights on those poles, but that cost would be borne by the airport to pay for those on a monthly basis.
Matt, those poles were cropped when we were buying up all the property, we were in that phase.
Yeah.
And then we started, and there was questions regarding one of the buildings in that vicinity, whether their HVAC systems were in the way or not.
Correct.
But they cropped that and said, okay, we're good. I thought that was the understanding.
We cropped the very, very tall poles that
Yeah.
had the obstruction lights on them. Those then became like the obstructions once all the trees and everything were removed. Closer to the airport, on the opposite side of Crawford Street from the airport, there's like 6 utility poles that have the actual wires that, feed the rest of the utility poles, so on and so forth, up Crawford Street. Those were always known as obstructions, but at the time it was unknown what we could do with those. There was correspondence and conversations with FAA flight procedures. At the time, it was Sean Redinger. That name probably sounds familiar to some of you guys. Where when we did the runway reconstruction project, we'd be able to tilt the PAPI at like a 3.5 degree slope to clear those, and then they'd be satisfactory for a clear approach. Well, working with FAA flight procedures, Carl Newton, he is working on approaches for the airport right now. He's working on an LPV approach for the airport. And so, like I was saying, at the time, we didn't look to bury those utilities because the coordination with the utility company was a nightmare. The cost to bury those was cost prohibitive with the agencies. So it was let's wait and see with the 3.5 degree glide slope, what that does. And worst case scenario, you throw a light on them. And we confirmed the other day with FAA flight procedures that if they're lit, then you'd be able to get your operations back at night. So right now, operations are NA at night, not applicable at night because of those poles, because they represent an obstruction to the 20-to-1 surface. With an obstruction light on them, similar to the telephone pole or one of the utility poles up by that building, it casts a 1,500-foot radius, and it covers anything in that vicinity. You're good to go from flight procedures perspective. So it's either they come down and we bury the utilities as part of a future project, which I think we're going to run into the same situation. The coordination efforts with, I think it was Unitil, and just the cost to bury those is going to be difficult to do.
Yeah, they don't like the.
Throw an obstruction light on it, and if it's satisfactory to flight procedures, which they confirmed, and it's not going to have an effect on your approaches, then that would be our recommendation. But we are still waiting for, that's FAA flight procedures. There's other lines of FAA business, and we're just waiting for New England Region to circle back with us on any other steps that may need to be done in order to fully move forward with that as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So will there be grant monies to place those lights on those poles?
There would be. There'd be grant monies, the 90% FAA share, 5% state share, 5% local share to put those up on a telephone pole. Again, there's going to be coordination efforts with, Unitil and whoever it is
Yes.
to make that happen. But yes, that is probably the path of least resistance to make sure that you're getting the best approaches you can get and that you're not prohibited at night because of those obstructions.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh,
Peter,
question.
go ahead, Peter.
It might be a silly question. Fitchburg has left-hand patterns.
Has what?
Has left-hand patterns.
Yeah.
So when you're flying, you turn left, and you come down. Those poles are on the right, on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side when you're coming in on a left-hand pattern.
Yeah.
And they're at least, I'd say, 80 to 100 yards from the runway. So why are they an obstruction?
Just the sheer size of the approach surfaces that are prescribed in the FAA's design, the advisory circular for their design, they're pretty wide. So like the approach surface starts, it's like 400 feet in width closest to the runway, and then it flails out to about 35 feet in width. Think back of the navigation easements that we acquired. Think about how some of those were up on like Moreland Ave in Leominster, and if you were to look at the center line on a runway, you'd be, to the layperson, you'd ask, why are we clearing trees that are way over here if an aircraft's coming in here? It's just the margin of safety that the FAA and flight procedures builds into these approaches to make sure that they're clear and that there's no hazards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Jack, I didn't mean to stumble you.
Not at all. We want to get your questions answered.
Okay.
It's important to us. So if we're moving on, in advance of this evening's meeting, we had provided a couple of plans to the commission just showing some proposed development concepts that will eventually make their way into Chapter 6, the development and evaluation of alternatives. And I was hoping this evening to review those plans with the commission to, I guess, before moving into really evaluating and digging in on the impacts of these potential developments, really just make sure that we have everything on these plans that you're looking to see, that you're hoping to see, and address any concerns or additional items that you may have. So, just to kind of keep going through, I can keep going through our agenda, or we can jump into the alternatives plan now, whatever you would prefer.
Yeah, we could touch on these alternative plans right away. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Daniel, could you pull up my screen? Thank you. Technical difficulties. So, but you have the plans in front of you this evening. You'll see Figure 1 and Figure 2. Hopefully those plans will come up on the screen momentarily. But you can see, we've proposed, just to kind of start off, you see the non-aeronautical use areas. We have a couple of different concepts down by the river. We have the parcel for potential solar farm development. And then up by Crawford Street, we have the 2 parcels for proposed business development.
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. And so those carry through from both onto Figure 1 and Figure 2, so it just kind of shows the same thing. The things that you really see the difference on are the hangar developments and what we're showing for hangars. So you have, some corporate development down on the runway 14 end with some parking area that is accessible, not requiring anyone to cross over the airfield to access that parking area. You also have a GA development there up towards that parcel that we're designating for proposed business development. And then the real difference is in your corporate hangar development that's, kind of below that there, you have 2 different scenarios here. So one scenario, you're utilizing the existing unnamed taxiway for your corporate development, and the other alternative, you're utilizing, dedicated taxi lane to access the parallel taxiway. So again, we'll go through in the analysis, and we'll actually, for all of these development scenarios, we can provide the impacts and the benefits and all those sorts of things. But just wanted to make sure that these hangar developments, there isn't anything additional that the commission would like to see on these plans. I'd like to just kind of also mention that, just because we're showing a particular hangar layout on the plan does not mean that that is what the airport is committed to constructing. That can all be kind of fleshed out at the time the project actually is developed. What FAA is looking to see for the purposes of the airport layout plan is generally what is going in certain areas. So, so this really gives you quite a few different options for developing hangars in different areas. But say you wanted to construct one large hangar in that area for corporate, or you wanted to construct a bunch of smaller hangars, or in the case of GA, perhaps you wanted to construct all T hangars in those areas, or all box hangars. You could certainly do that. You wouldn't be limited just because you dedicate this area on the plan and you're showing T hangars. We're really just showing those T hangars and those box hangars to give the commission an idea of what could potentially fit in those areas, and we have designed your corporate hangar around the design aircraft, the Dassault Falcon 50, just to give you an idea of what would fit in that space. Yes, Peter?
Question, Jackie, please. Mass development site readiness this evening, Mary Jo's going to talk on that, and one of the things that we had in our meeting with mass development was the size of the acreage of the non-aviation. And you're showing 8.3 acres there, whereas I'd actually put down 12 acres, I think, from memory. And we had a discussion this week, and you said, yes, you can add the grey area in between those two to get your 12 acres.
Okay.
Correct? Yeah, okay, so I just want Mary Jo to know that, all right? And the other thing is that if we look at the 2.8 acres, if you look along Crawford Street, you've got an area of land that does go down there that I think on Google Earth it measured 4.5 acres
Okay.
that could be used to develop, like putting DGS, Debbie's gas station, at the top there, you know? So does that have to be on there for the FAA to say, okay, you can build up there because it's not shown at the moment?
What, the acreage you mean? I suggest, honestly, I think we got the acreage from you originally, Peter. I think that's where we got it from like maybe a preliminary plan when we were kind of just spitballing ideas on hangars and non-aeronautical. It'd be my preference, honestly, just get rid of the acreage. Don't even show the acreage on there. Just take all of that area that's up there and we can put like a hatching on it.
Okay, that's fine.
And then it is what it is. Whatever the acreage is,
no,
and
absolutely.
whatever the city's setbacks are for development and stuff like that, that's going to determine what type of facilities can be, developed in there anyways.
right.
So I think the 2.8 acres and the 8.3 acres, like I said, I think came from early discussions when we were looking at potential hangar opportunities and non-aeronautical uses. But there's no other significance other than I think that's just we got it from you guys at one point.
But that land has to be used for aeronautical purposes, right?
At present, it is designated for aeronautical purposes. I think what we're saying is, in working with the Airport Commission, if it's your opinion that that area could potentially be used for non-aeronautical purposes, we will do the evaluation on our end to take a look at what the airport needs from an aeronautical perspective and take a look if that area could theoretically be used for non-aeronautical purposes.
And the FAA is okay with that?
We don't know yet. We're just
Yeah.
spitballing with the commission and thinking about what you as a commission and as an airport and as a city may like to see up in that area.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to lay out, okay, well, are you going to have enough hangar space to accommodate future demand as a result of what we've looked at in the forecast? But no, the FAA could look at that, they could balk at that, and they could say, we're not satisfied with that. We don't know, what the future holds, and potentially that could be required for aeronautical purposes, and therefore we're not on board with releasing that to a non-aeronautical use. In which case, we'd come back to the drawing board and we'd have to work with you guys and say, they're saying no, we're not sure what else you'd put up there right now, but it needs to stay as aeronautical use for whatever that determined time is.
No, I hate to take good acreage and just say, yeah, we're gonna farm it out. No, it's future growth, absolutely. You need something down the road, yeah, okay, that's good.
I'd just like to comment there. I must admit that in discussions with MassDOT and FAA, Owen and George and Barry, because we've actually discussed leasing that land out to a company that's right next door, just down the road, and they were happy with that as non-aviation because of the slope of the ground going up there. So, it's difficult to say at this point in time, isn't it?
It's also possible that you could lease that land out. I think it's what Peter built that was looking to store trucks there or something like that. So something that's non-invasive, if you will, in terms of like actual physical construction and buildings. You could, in theory, lease that out until such time as that land is needed for aeronautical purposes, and then it would revert back.
Right.
That's a
I'd rather see
possibility.
that,
That's a possibility too. I think the second you start putting, buildings and constructing on that, now you start getting into leases and the whole 9 yards, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to be like, hey, you need to move your trucks. We now need this for aeronautical purposes. So that's sort of the exercise we're going through right now, and FAA and MassDOT need to be involved in that conversation as to whether or not this is, a permanent shift from aeronautical use to non-aeronautical use.
I got a comment, and if you could answer for clarity. Just because it's designated non-aeronautical use, it's still airport property, is that true?
Correct.
So, in reference to that, the airport fencing, the black 10-foot fence, the proposed 10-foot fencing, is that, would be on the outside of this non-aeronautical use land, or would it be on the airport side?
You're saying the black going along Crawford Street right now is existing?
Yes, and then the little blue fence is proposed.
Correct.
So I guess my question is, are they going to have their own fenced-in area?
I guess I'm not fully following what you're saying. I mean, they're going to need to access that somehow from Crawford Street. We're throwing in the blue fence there because if you have a non-aeronautical use, and again, I don't know what that's going to be, call it Peterbilt for whatever, sake of the argument, you don't want that non-aeronautical use having that ability to then mix into just the general airport proper.
No.
So that fence is to delineate that area as like, you're non-aeronautical, you're outside the fence.
So the grant-funded black 10-foot fence is going to actually go all around the airport property. They don't care what's on the inside, whether it's aeronautical or non-aeronautical use.
Are you following?
I'm
not sure. I guess I'm not following. There's existing fence along Crawford Street that a portion of that would have to go away so someone can then access that, what we're calling 10 acres right now.
Yeah.
Right?
There are gates there already.
There are gates there right now, but I would imagine that the access, the driveway, whatever that looks like, would potentially shift. And now I think, are you asking me if when the FAA funds a future fencing project, are they going to fund all the way fencing around that?
Correct.
That I don't know. That would be a discussion with FAA to see,
All right.
to see if they would find that or deem that to be eligible for federal funding where it's going around that non-aeronautical use. I don't know.
All right, thank you. So to discuss the hangar layout, does anyone else have any comments? Before, the hangar layouts, I don't know which one's A. Okay, yes, I do. Figure 1 shows a dedicated ramp, what do you call that, a taxiway?
Yes.
Dedicated taxiway.
Both show.
So I guess I'm curious, how would the fuel trucks get to that area, or is this just, is all that paved area?
Well, it's definitely not all paved area. So whatever's existing grass out there today would remain like existing grass minus the taxi lanes. So there are a couple questions that I know we have in terms of like, where do we do parking? How do the corporate hangar owners and their clients get out there and park vehicles and stuff like that? That's still something that we're kicking back and forth, and
Okay.
don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Is there an advantage to having a dedicated taxiway? So that would be, would these go in order A, B, C, D? Or how does that how does that
The only
complicate
the only real advantage, I think, to having, dedicated taxi lanes serving, you're basically trying to not mix the general aviation.
That's
with
what I like about Figure 1.
Same, and the part of that is you don't want your Falcons and your Platuses
one.
and stuff like that mixing in with the 172s and the smaller aircraft. So the point of this layout, and again, like Jackie was saying, this isn't necessarily need to be set in stone, like you're going to have 2 taxi lanes serving 6 hangars and then 5 hangars here.
Yeah.
But what that does is that just keeps all of that corporate traffic away from your GA traffic.
That's what I like about Figure 1.
Yeah. But I do admit that there are some things for us to consider, like how does fuel trucks get over there to service them? How do you get parking? Things like that.
Yeah.
For the corporate area that's to your far left looking on the screen,
Yes.
we like the idea of coming down, I don't know if it's Cobbler Lane or Blueberry Lane. Blueberry Lane, coming down Blueberry Lane, and then you see we've got a proposed motorized gate to service that area, and then that corporate area is sort of, on its own, in its own designated area, and then we would just need to consider how we get to the middle of the screen. There's maybe, 9 or so hangars, 10 hangars? How do you funnel people coming in to the airport over to that area, trying
Right.
to stay off the operational areas?
Yeah, right. It works great for the planes, but not so much for getting to and from. Yeah.
Right, yep.
Anyone else?
One of the questions I did ask Jackie was, you know, we'd hopefully in the future get a nice large corporate hangar, maybe 10,000 square feet. And she said, you can do what you want in there, you know, so it's not just restricted to what they've identified. The layout as well is not in blood. It's exactly what, you know, the airport needs. So you can chop and change to suit what the requirements are for the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, looks terrific.
Just bring me up to speed on those corporate ones. How many planes are we fitting in there?
It'd probably be, how many corporate do we have, you mean?
Talk about
Like
3 to 5?
each hangar would probably be one.
Yeah, it'd be one, the way we have it
It's a good-sized
designed.
jet.
The
The Falcon, yeah.
The Falcon,
yeah.
yes.
Correct. There's like 16 of
I
them.
Yeah.
One could run me over, I wouldn't know what it is.
Oh, you'd know it after it rolled over you, for sure.
Yeah, so again, really just trying to show the commission here, you know, what potentially could be, you know, what we were thinking is like the largest size hangar that might be built, but Peter had mentioned that a larger hangar might be needed. So, you know, of course, that could be pursued, but really just from a spatial standpoint, trying to give the commission an idea of what will fit here, and knowing that you have, you know, in this layout, you have all your wingtip clearances for, you know, required for the design aircraft and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I like the concept, no?
Yeah.
And we've kept you out of the wetlands to the extent that we can. I think there might be some minor buffer impacts, but we've designed this so that it keeps you out of wetlands. It drives down cost on, you know, permitting and wetland impact and replication and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that vegetation that's circled in red? Is that where we are
The
looking at
wetland
the
Yeah,
figures?
the wetland buffer, yep.
Okay.
So is Chapter 6 going to the FAA soon for approval, or?
No. So this is really just a preliminary discussion today to get your feedback on all of these things. You know, items like how is the fuel truck getting over to that corporate development? That's a great point that you're making. And the questions about the fencing. But we'll actually develop a full text chapter that will evaluate each of these alternatives. It will give you all the different impacts, your benefits, the operational impacts. It'll give you, you know, what the additional impervious surface area would be, any wetland buffer impacts. We'll get all of that information down, you know, and summarize that into a text version that will couple along with these plans. And then from there, after that is developed, presumably in time for the March meeting, then at that time, the commission would select their preferred alternatives from those.
Okay, that's perfect. So we're just
kicking the
Thinking
tires
out
on some
loud.
options.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Just making sure that we have that before we go into, you know, really digging into the nitty gritty of each of these projects, that we have everything in here that the airport is looking to do potentially for the future. So
are you looking for our opinion as to leaning towards Figure 1 or leaning towards Figure 2 at this time?
No.
Okay.
We're just looking for any additional feedback that you have. Like I said, any projects. I mean, just to kind of jump in, we're showing a little bit in the main apron and the terminal area. Just to draw your attention there, we're showing a designated area for potential airfield restaurant at some point. Additional parking that we know will be needed as that restaurant, you know, potentially comes online. Then we have, you know, a little bit of a reconfiguration of the hangars in that area to try to maximize the space there. But any other projects or items or things that you would like to see or questions that you have, you know, for future developments that you would like us to explore, that's really why we're here this evening.
Is there anything not on here that you had your heart set on? skydiving landing area or something, you know?
A what?
Skydiving landing area?
Squash.
No, Matt, everything I ever dreamed of is on this sheet. If it's not on figure 1, it's on figure 2. Thank you very much.
To the.
Jackie, I'm sure you had almost everything to do with this, so thank
The
you.
far left, you
It's very
show,
much a group effort.
you show 5 hangars to the far left. So beyond that, I know it's closer to the river. Also, we had proposed a solar farm in that area too, so you're taking that into consideration so that you couldn't add more hangar space? Yes.
In this area.
In that area
you're
there?
talking. Really, I think, I mean, from an access standpoint with that wetland there,
Okay.
not sure what,
You're working around that?
yeah, we're really trying to work around those wetlands.
Peter, is that what we had proposed in that area for the solar farm?
No, just to the west of the airport, which is where the
just the
purple
pink.
is.
This,
That bit
Or
down.
purple.
Just,
this here?
Yeah.
just that?
Yes.
Okay.
On this side, land,
Okay.
it's landlocked.
So there's nothing else over there?
Right.
Okay, got it.
But Commissioner Liberatore, if I could just comment on your comment there, where we're showing the 5 hangars again, and just to Jackie's point, that doesn't mean that some of that additional area to the left of them heading down towards the river could not be used for additional hangars.
Yeah.
It's possible it could be. It's just you'd have to get someone that wants to come in, unless the city was going to be building hangars, but a developer to come in and make a proposal to the commission that makes sense to maximize that area. You certainly could deviate from our proposed geometry here and go into further down that, that area of the airport and add more hangars.
Right, okay.
You know, I think it's important that we all keep in mind that we are anticipating less than a 1% growth rate over the next 20 years. So we have that on, what, 3 hangars?
Peter has plans though, so,
Oh, okay.
I think it's going to be far bigger than that.
Yeah, well, I hope it is.
Personal opinion.
I actually have a question.
You got it.
With figure 1, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. With figure 1, do we have any space, so if the airport wanted to host like an aviation event, a sky show, do we have area where we could, put on an event? Or is that kind of out of the question now, based on this figure?
Can I comment, Matt?
yeah, go
course.
ahead, 'cause I know George has
If you look
already
at the ramp size at the moment is staying the same size, and the ramp is big enough to actually house the planes that would be associated with a sky show.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, Peter, that's exactly what you and I had talked about previously, was making sure that apron could accommodate future events as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I mean, this is a full build out too. This assumes that you're fully built out. It's, you know what I mean? There'll be a long ways, I think, before you realize all these different hangars and stuff.
Well, Peter's got a lot of plans, so,
He does.
yeah.
We have a lot of plans.
Okay, well,
Oh, I like what I see.
I think everybody that wants to comment has commented.
Okay,
so-
okay, great. So the plan moving forward will be, again, to dive into the text portion of Chapter 6 and get that assembled and get all of the impacts outlined and all of the, benefits and things, and pull that into a chapter, and then get that off to all of you for review and comment, and, get this ready in time for the March meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on these plans, or before I move on?
No, good job. Thank you.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, very-
So just to kind of update you on the other remaining items in the master plan. So we're working in the background on the airport layout plan. That will be the plan ultimately that shows when the commission selects their preferred alternatives. Those will all go on to the ultimate airport layout plan. But the airport layout plan is a sheet set that includes your existing facilities plan. It includes all of your, some obstruction plans, your Part 77 airspace plan. So it's a sheet that is all being worked on right now internally and getting ready for the preferred development alternatives to be added to the plan, and that will ultimately go off to FAA and Mass DOT for review and approval when the time comes. Other chapters that we are working on, I spoke with Peter this past week. Thank you very much for your assistance on the airport recycling, reuse, and waste reduction. That's a requirement of FAA to be included in every airport master plan. So that's basically drafted, and you know, in the coming months we'll go over that. But it's a pretty straightforward and simple chapter.
Yep.
The only outstanding item that we have not really touched yet to date is the schedule of improvements, which is Chapter 7, and that of course will come after after the commission has selected the alternatives and we kind of start getting into, okay, what's the CIP going to look like over the next 5 years, then what is it going to look like over the next 10 years, and then into your 20 years. So we'll start prioritizing your projects in Chapter 7, and that will be a discussion that we have at a future meeting as well.
Okay.
Any questions on the master plan before we move on? Okay, so after, I'm sorry, did you have something?
No, we're good.
So after we finish up the master plan, the next step in the process is pursuing an environmental assessment, and you'll see we have that listed as Project 3 on our update. So basically, the environmental assessment will take a look at your proposed new developments that were selected as part of the master plan process, and then from an environmental compliance standpoint, we'll review those projects under that. We'll also include in that project your wildlife hazard assessment. So you'll have a wildlife hazard. We'll have actually a subconsultant come out and do a study that will evaluate any wildlife that are coming on to the airfield, and then make recommendations for ways to to mitigate those things or to reduce the risk of wildlife incursions on the airfield. So that's going to be a proposed project for fiscal year 2022, and as we know, the FAA has moved up their grant application deadline to April 11th. So we are trying to, over the next few weeks, actually schedule a scoping meeting for the environmental assessment and the wildlife hazard assessment project. And so you'll see probably some correspondence in the coming weeks, Peter, to requesting your attendance basically at the scoping meeting. Any questions on the environmental assessment?
Just one quick question.
Sure.
The environmental assessment, could the outcome of that negate some of these plans completely? Would like all these hangars on the left may be in jeopardy after a wildlife assessment, or is this generally, percentage of space needs to be left open for the birds and the deer? And
I thought we were trying to keep the deer out.
You can go ahead.
No, it won't do that. I mean, so a lot of the area that we've used or proposed for hangars is all previously disturbed land, which is good. In other words, it's like most of it was always on runway 220, which is, it used to be, a runway.
Yes.
That's torn up, so now we're just proposing to reuse that area. Those hangars probably won't even need to be evaluated as part of the FAA's environmental assessment project, just because it is on previously disturbed land. What the EA takes a look at is like your fencing, your proposed solar, your non-aeronautical use, for example, are any of those things impacting wetlands? If they are, to what extent? Are there any rare or endangered species that we need to take into consideration? Are there any Section 106 archaeological or historical issues that we may be confronted with? That's what the EA is going to evaluate. But generally speaking, no, it's not going to be nope, we need to reserve this area for birds. As you can appreciate, birds and aircraft really don't mix. So the last thing the FAA is going to want to see is a bird sanctuary at the airport. So,
Well put. So the non-aeronautical use space is in jeopardy and is at,
I'm not even saying that it's in jeopardy. I think just a designating an area probably wouldn't trigger the need to be included in the EA, but if there was a proposal to construct something,
Yes.
that may trigger the need for it to be reviewed through the environmental assessment process, just to make sure that there are no, again, wetlands, rare, endangered, threatened species, things like that that are going to be impacted.
thank you.
So you do have to identify the endangered species.
I don't know. I'm not sure you can disclose that, so I actually don't know off the top of my head the answer to that.
The reason being, at the mass development meeting we had, there were some birds there that are there every single year. You can hardly see them. They lay small eggs, and they are an endangered species, and that area is protected, according to Steve? Ed, according to Ed, the mass development guy. So I think you better identify those birds on whatever you're going to do.
Oh, they would be as part of that EA for sure.
Okay.
They would be identified. I just don't know off the top of my head, Peter, whether or not you can like publicly disclose what species there. I don't know if there's anything around that.
Right, all right. I just don't want us to do anything that's, contravening to what the mass development people are saying, so, all right. I can't even remember the name of the bird, but do you remember? Grasshopper sparrow.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah,
Praying mantis in the
particularly at airports. So, yeah, they like the new runway.
Who doesn't?
Just joking. Okay,
All right.
Any other questions on environmental assessment?
no,
Matt, do you want to?
You just need to see what they find out.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, can I just round out Gail's update real quickly by stating that the runway 1432 final design and construction project, the grant closeout paperwork's been submitted to FAA and Mass DOT. So moving forward, this project's not going to show up on our update.
has that been submitted already?
It's submitted, yeah. Nick said, he gave us the update this morning and said it's been submitted.
Does he know when?
I will ask him.
I'll tell you why, Matt, because I had a meeting with John Merck, and he actually is leaving the FAA,
That's what Nick told me this morning,
and and he would like it to be done whilst he's still there, and he leaves on March the 13th, and he said, could he please have it before then, so that he can sign everything off.
So I will ask him, and John's not leaving the FAA, as I understand he's working for like headquarters or something
Yeah,
like that. but-
absolutely, he's going to, to Washington.
Something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
And then just real quickly, the installation of the backup generator, we're still waiting on the IFE from Mass DOT.
I've got a question there.
Yeah.
Please. It says capable of powering the entire airport. Owen Silbar was specific that he didn't want the self-serve fuel farm on that.
Where do you see the capable of?
Item 1.
Item 1, installation of backup generator capable of powering
Gotcha.
the entire
Sorry.
airport. Unless there's another document come out from Owen that I haven't seen, that I can't recall.
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
Any other questions on that one?
nope.
Then the modifications to the fuel tank system to allow for bottom loading using the airport's refueler truck. We can assist in preparing grant application once Titan Fuel provides the cost for the modifications. And I don't know if you've received.
I'm going to cover that as we go through the next.
Okay.
all right?
And then we don't have anything on the hangar door replacements for hangar 2 or hangar 4. That's it for us, unless you guys have any further questions.
My one question that's actually highlighted in red, Matt, you've already answered because it was concerning the closeout of 3214, and you've answered that by Nick saying that it's already been submitted, so thank
I'll
you.
find out exactly when that was submitted, and I'll
Okay.
touch base with you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4, Fitchburg Pilots Association update.
Nothing but they are currently preparing for the April 24th Wings and Wheels that now we've got the FCA Flight School to also attend with a table and leaflets and offer any flights on that day.
Yeah,
So it really is an aeronautical venture.
good. A new business, vote to change commission meeting date to the third Wednesday of each month going forward for 2022, which will allow us to still use the legislative building, where there's other commissions that want to use the building on the fourth Wednesday. We were asked, I asked everyone individually. I didn't get any absolute no's. So we do need to officially vote on whether we're going to change that to the third Wednesday of every month from this day forward. Any comments?
Yeah, who needs this time lot?
I don't know, but I think that ship has sailed.
Well, it's like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it comes out, I just don't like the way the city works. That's all.
I want to say it's finance, but I could be wrong.
When does finance meet now, David?
I believe it's on Tuesdays.
Tuesday? Tuesday's a good day for the finances.
I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it's finance committee.
Okay?
Just being a
Anything
devil's
else?
advocate. No, that's good, yeah.
You know, get it off your chest.
Well, I'll make a motion if we need one.
Sure, I'll take a motion to change the airport commission meetings to the third Wednesday of each month.
I'll second that.
And we need a vote. Yes or no? Yes?
Aye.
Yes.
3-0. Thank you, David. Old business. Let's get item A, mass development, site readiness. I think Mary Jo Bohart would like to present on this, and you're welcome.
Probably easier to hear if I stand near this.
Yes, please.
Sorry about that. So last week, we were able to have a site visit by Mass Development, who is the funding source for the new site readiness grant, and Peter Kettle, airport manager, and Rich Raymond, commissioner, were present as well. It was essentially to give an overview of what you all have been up to, a little bit about the airport master plan, and then we walked out into the field so that the visitors could appreciate what is where, and also see the tracts of land that have been cleared after the runway was decommissioned. So that was very helpful. To give you a little bit of a sense of timing, a draft scope of work will be crafted by Mass Development, kind of based on what they've heard in talking, seeing things in the field, talking to you all, and it would be then for you to react to. Keep in mind that the nature of this type of grant is to provide services and analysis for things that you don't have funding for. So you have all sorts of airport master plan funding and so on, but there are things that aren't a part of that. And so whether it's the non-aviation related use land, some of the market studies of what could go in there or that sort of thing. So anyway, one initial thing that was mentioned during the visit was an opportunity constraints analysis of that redevelopment acreage, thinking of maybe where the utilities are or aren't, some of the other natural features or whatever, access points, just so that there's a better understanding of that. Possibly, these are just ideas, and I'm throwing them out so that you can be thinking about it. I just did a quick little outline that I provided to Mass Development to get their thoughts going, and I'll give it to you guys as well. And once again, everybody's just sort of thinking about it, because this gets customized based on what you think that would be most impactful and helpful. Development strategy, market-based types of analysis, possibly looking at comps of other facilities and what went in. Aviation-related, non-aviation-related mix of uses when looking at other airport properties similar to yours. The restaurant as an amenity, both for aviation customers or to drive overall visitorship. How does that work at other locations, and how might that work here? Once again, thinking about it from a real estate development standpoint and getting information that will help you with your decision-making, and so that's the nature of it. Recommendations for a disposition strategy, methodology for decision-making, valuation of the asset, understanding the current demand for industrial land and how that's changed in the last year. Once again, to give you good information to help you with your decision-making, that kind of thing. Infrastructure-wise, the roadway access points, possibly coming off of Blueberry and Cobbler, perhaps a design concept of how that might be done. That is something that site readiness does fund. And any deficiencies, water, sewer, internet, utilities, better understanding how those might be laid out to serve the areas that you're looking to repurpose. So anyway, this is all very rough, and this is not the scope, this is just ideas, but I just wanted to give you guys something that you could at least get your juices flowing.
Thank you.
And then what we'll be doing is checking back with Mass Development as they come up with something, and then it's for you to react to. Ultimately, once a scope of work is mutually agreed upon, then there's a grant agreement that formalizes the whole thing and the work begins. They are aware of the timing on the Gale Associates work that's, coming down its final stages and so on. And so it seems that the timing is actually opportune for this, because as that's concluding, some of this type of analysis can be complementary and not duplicative, but providing information that isn't a part of the work that's already being done. So.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
Sure.
I would encourage all of the commission members and the public to comment on anything that's on your mind or that the airport is in need of, because this grant, again, is open. It's flexible.
Flexible.
If we're looking for property assessment, if we're looking for what a land lease should look like for non-aeronautical use, they can investigate that, on and on. So it'd be in our best interest to capitalize on this, what is it, over $100,000?
It's $100,000, and the way that the site readiness grants work, Mass Development doesn't provide that as cash. Instead, they have an array of different consultants already under contract with them. One in particular that they feel is a good fit for this particular site in this project is VHB, and they have offices throughout the region, but the one out of Worcester has a few folks that have particular expertise where it might be a good fit.
Yeah.
So that's what they were recommending.
Yeah.
But if for some reason, and I can speak from other site readiness projects we've done elsewhere in Fitchburg, when some topic or need comes up that might be beyond what VHB does, then they simply bring in a different consultant for that. So they have the ability to tailor whichever consultants are needed based on whatever you wish to have investigated.
Okay. No, this is good.
Good, thank you.
Anyone want to?
Well, we've talked about, we never got a true value of what our property was worth.
No, we never have.
And this was at least a year and a half ago. We discussed that we were going to bring in somebody, evaluate what the property was worth, so if we get into a lease, we wouldn't be compromising ourselves. We'd be fair and square to them, fair and square to the airport.
Yeah.
There's definitely something that...
Again, this is a little bit more geared towards the mass development side of things, which, is really a non-aeronautical use areas. This is, in other words, the mass development really kind of wants to get something back for their $100,000 grant.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But again, we may have, almost 20 acres of non-aeronautical space that may be worth more money than the aeronautical space.
If we can get
Correct.
that. That's
Yep.
still up in the air.
Yep.
One question.
So
Oh, cool. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mary
I
Jo.
had one very quick question, just for my own know-how, because I'm not as up to speed, obviously, as you all are. Is there aviation-related use which isn't hangars? Would certain types of businesses that are in the aeronautic support kind of roles, does that fall under aviation-related, or is aviation-related use just hangars? Is that the only way that you think of aviation-related use? Because I'm ignorant, and I don't know.
That's a terrific question, I don't even have the
Okay.
answer for that. So,
Because
Matt, could
I just
you
wondered, yeah.
tune in on that? Or Peter, okay, Peter.
The FBO is not hangars, it's an area where they actually repair the aircraft. There's also an area on the airport at the moment that repairs engines only. We also have an upholsterer that does upholstery for the aeroplanes. So it's anything really that services those aircraft as well as hangars. So it really is a broad field. Okay?
So, for myself, if General Electric wanted to build turbine engines on that non-aeronautical space, is it now considered aeronautical?
It's a manufacturing facility.
Yes.
But it goes into an aircraft, but I don't think it's aeronautical, but I don't know. I'm not the one that makes that decision,
Okay.
you know?
More of a business.
So we don't have an answer for you.
But it's a broad field.
Because I wasn't sure if the only use that goes in the aviation-related polygons is hangars, or might there be other types of aviation-related use that might also go there?
That's a good question, because if they manufacture jet engines on that space, there really isn't any added value to the airport other than the lease of the land. In other words, they're not buying fuel from us. They're not using the airport for any other reason other than manufacturing jet engines.
They have to test the engines, so they'll buy fuel from us.
Well, there's a couple gallons, yeah. So I don't know. Yes. Attorney Pusateri.
Just the restaurant, I think, was really the next thing on the list for a long time, and I know that we've kind of deviated from that thinking when we got into the master plan, but...
The restaurant's on the master plan.
But this grant would be available to put a pad-ready site for that type of use?
That type of use is part of what this could look at. I guess my question, once again, because I'm not as up to speed as everybody is, must a restaurant use be sequestered to the non-aviation area, which, you know, is kind of further to the north, if you will, or can a use like that be closer to, call it the action? I'm just thinking, once again, I don't know these things, but does restaurant use get categorized as non-aviation?
I would say not. I mean, if you were going to have a restaurant there with, and I would suggest having one with catering service, then, you know, cater to the airplanes, cater to passengers. I mean, you go to Logan, and all the airports have restaurants at the terminals. So can some of these funds investigate the airport, I guess is what the restaurant, is that that's your question, yeah.
We really wanted, the mayor was very interested in having some type of site, either for one of the portable trailer-style dining carts.
Yes.
Or a more permanent structure, and then have someone come in and either rent that and operate it there. That's been one of his primary thoughts about the next steps on that.
Right.
That was also the point I was going to make, was I know that the restaurant is something that we want to get going here. So if there's a way we can use some of these funds for that, I know Mary Jo and I have had offline conversations about that, using some of this funding for that. I think we should definitely look into doing that.
Yeah.
With Solicitor Pusateri.
No, these are all the comments that we need to put together on one sheet.
One more thing, and I'll just speak loudly rather than walking over. Hopefully it's picking up on the audio okay. One thing to think about.
It's not. Can you go on? Thank you.
I'm here. Another thing to think about, it's sort of question mark. Could mass development resources and some of the, whether it's market-based analysis or other things, also help with the aviation-related uses? They seemed to not make that distinction quite the same. Obviously, you have the aviation-related areas, non-aviation-related areas, but it's all economic development. And if there's something about your aviation-related development plans that you have for yourself where you need a bit more analysis to better understand phasing or market or who knows what, this would be the time for some of these professional services to be brought to bear. So I didn't want you to feel like you're limiting yourself where this is only necessarily just for those areas which are non, because your aviation-related economic development plans are extremely important. And mass development tends to look more broadly if need be.
Well, that's a great point. That answers our question. Yeah.
There's one category that falls into that straight away, because the new 7 to 9 hangars that are proposed, hopefully that will move forward, will need gas, will need electricity, will need water, will need sewage, and there's none there at the moment. So it's, do we bring them from the left-hand side of the airport, or do we bring them down Blueberry Lane? So there's a big opportunity straight away.
So I think in the scope of work, when do you anticipate that would be presented? Sorry, Mary Jo.
I should just say, I spoke with Ed Starzak this afternoon of Mass Development to get a sense of timing. He anticipates having a rough cut. This is not the scope, this is just an outline of ideas.
Yes.
A rough cut of a scope of work for you all to react to, probably sometime next week. The way, as far as how quickly can the site readiness work begin, it begins when the scope of work is mutually agreed upon, the grant agreement gets formalized, which can happen very quickly. It's all about the scope, getting that scope so that it's ticking all the boxes that you need it to for your needs. And I said to Ed today, do you think, within the next 3 to 4 weeks? And he thought that was doable as far as beginning some of the analysis or work or whatever.
Okay, so we can scratch down our thoughts and send this to you within the next 10 days.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the things I have on here. This was to get your juices flowing.
Yeah.
But any ideas or needs or whatever that you have in mind, if you want to, send them my way, I'll cull it all together, share it with him, and then basically Mass Development will come up with some draft version for you to react to.
Yes. All right.
Good.
Thank you. We are going to move on to item B. Door for lobby.
The quote is hopefully going to be available by the end of this week.
Thank you. All right, hot button issue, R4102A and R4102B. For people that don't know, this is the restricted airspace over the southern side of Fort Devens. Peter had a meeting, and I'll let Peter speak.
Yeah, the meeting went very, very well, and basically we have an invite to go back to Commander Colstock's facility at Devens, to the range, to have a look at what they're doing, and at the same time they are inviting TRACON to be there. And we've had a few planes going through that restricted area since we've had the meeting. The proposal from Commander Colstock was this Friday, but due to what's happening within the city at the moment with the budgets having to be conducted, it's now proposed for the 11th of March. So it's moving forwards, and everybody on both sides seems to be very happy with the progress.
Okay, so you're saying some improvement has already happened?
Absolutely.
With the
Yes.
space being
Yes.
not hot?
One thing we didn't know was that if somebody calls in when they're 20 minutes out, that can give enough time for the range to close down.
Okay,
And nobody knew that, but we know now.
Yeah.
And people are actually looking at that. So
yeah.
if we get TRACON there, then this might be one of the things that they can add to the documents that go to the pilots that fly in.
I'm sorry,
All
what's a
20 minutes.
TRACON?
It's, what does it stand for, Matt? It's basically the control area that looks after any plane flying within the airspace.
Okay,
So
that's good news.
it is good news.
Yeah. All right, item D, tie downs.
Mr. Pusateri, would you like to talk on this?
I have nothing new to say.
Okay, but it's in progress.
It's in progress, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, we received the communication, what was it, yesterday?
Yes. Day before yesterday.
And it's in progress. We have a lease that's tied to tie downs.
Yes, and we need to fix that.
It's a 60-year lease too, Mr. Chair.
Uh-huh.
So this is a problem that we'll have for the next 50 years, unless we can find a way to fix it. And we believe that there's lease provisions that require it to be fixed.
Correct.
Yes, from the FAA, absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm sure it will be a hotly debated point, and it would very likely be litigated.
So what happens if you have a gentleman's agreement to change the lease to reflect the new requirement?
I think that hypothetical is so far from becoming reality, I haven't put any thought into it. I don't think that there will be a gentleman's agreement based on a level of rhetoric that's been thrown at our good airport manager, and
Okay.
so it's in progress.
All right. We're going to leave it at that. Thank you. Request for proposals, 7 to 9 hangars. If I could just comment on that. Mary Delaney has sent the bidding party the RFP is now closed. It was rejected by the procurement office because of the number of exceptions to the RFP and the lease that was proposed. So that's over. We did, Peter, Solicitor Pusateri, and Representative Eric Shuffles for, what are they, Protector Group or something, did meet at City Hall to talk about the things that were not advantageous to developers as far as that lease was concerned. There were some issues that were previously struck from that lease, and we're actually working on those items to be struck from the lease, and we're going to make another go of this. A hot button issue is a 60-year term. You know, the solicitor's office is not a fan of going over 40 years. And according to Mr. Sheffels, who does deal with leases and development, is accustomed to a 75 or 99-year lease. So there's a big gap there. The commission, I know, has requested from George Pantelli to go beyond the 50-year cap as far as the FAA is concerned, to extend to a 60-year. And we did get a written or verbal agreement that he would be agreeable to 60-year lease terms if 7 to 9 hangars could be developed at one time. So, I mean, I am in the court of opinion that a 60-year lease is agreeable. However, 60 years does come with a long-time agreement that runs into issues if the lease isn't properly executed from the beginning. So, Peter, you can elaborate if you'd like, and I'm open to comments, but this is a problem. We have 7 to 9 enthusiastic individuals and capable of developing this property, but really ran into a roadblock with the current lease agreement that we all share a part in, that we all agreed to months ago. So we need to revisit it.
Which we are doing, and following the mayor and your departure, Tony Pusateri, I asked Eric Sheffels to put down his points on what he thinks or believes that was agreed at that meeting, in his words, and he's going to prepare that and send it back to us. And I think everybody knows my view. Without these 7 to 9 hangars going ahead, I think that really is the way for the future at the airport, to get 7 to 9 jets coming in here, spending $340,000 a year on jet fuel, as well as the taxes that are going to be paid to the city, is a massive benefit to the city. And that's my viewpoint. So,
Would anybody else like to comment on this order of old business, but ongoing?
sorry, just one other thing.
Yes.
In the original proposal, it was the first 7 to 9 hangars, behind that was the second 7 to 9 hangars, and behind that was the third 7 to 9 hangars. So if you look at that from a revenue point of view, that's over $1.2 million a year on fuel sales, which is a massive benefit for the city. The city's trying to make the airport self-supporting, and this is the way to do it. My viewpoint.
So are we going to be going back out to bid, Mr. Chair? Is that the
Yes.
plan?
Yes.
And the main issue is the 40 versus 60 years, it sounds like, is what I gather.
We'll go with,
I think there were two issues.
yeah.
I think there was a number of issues, and I think there was an email that I sent out sometime in July of last year that struck at least 3 of them out, that resolved them. And I think the 2 outstanding issues is length of term, and I think there's some confusion about whether or not the lease is causing the waiver of any eminent domain. So if for some reason the city had to take over that area, what would happen to the value that belongs to the private citizens? What would happen to the buildings themselves, not the land, because that would be ours. And I guess the other component of value there could also possibly be their interest in the lease. So there could be a financial, would we have to compensate them full fair market value at that point? And I think we did talk about the eminent domain not being waived during that meeting. So I don't think that the lease does that, but Mr. Sheffels thinks that the lease does require them to waive that. So we've got to look at that. And those are the 2 main issues that stick out in my mind from that meeting.
That's correct.
I just would recap, when you look at the assertion that they need a 60-year lease, I just run the numbers, I'm just running them again real quickly for you. You're looking at the cost of the building at 40 years to be $700 a month. So there'd be $700 a month for that. It'd be a nominal amount for the land. It's certainly not an accurate statement to say there's no return on the investment without a 60-year lease. So that's where, my primary pushback is. We just talked about another lease that we have a long-term commitment, another 50 years, I think, and there's going to be a dispute about what the rent is, and that'll go on for 50 years. So, this is the kind of thing where at least we'll be gone when they're making fun of us. But they will be making fun of us. This lease at 60 years should have a review every 10 years, my position, from the other leases I've looked at that are long-term, for a fair market evaluation of the rent. Mr. Sheffels doesn't want that to happen. So if we just stick with a simple escalation clause, if we start at the wrong place, today we're going to be really at the wrong place, 30 years from now, and then we're really going to be off the mark as we approach the end of the lease. So, one thought I was trying to advance was, well, if he doesn't want to do it every 10 years, it's not that we have to do it every 10 years or we don't do it at all. Maybe we can find another time period where we can allow the city a chance to check the fair market value. Maybe it works against us. Maybe it works in their favor. But the worst thing that should happen as a result of that type of an evaluation is something fair. And ideally, that's kind of that's the goal that I'm looking for.
And so you agree with the chief procurement officer that 40 years is the sweet spot?
I don't necessarily know if she's taken a position. I think really, too, the other issue is, I think at some point in time, the commission can make a decision as to what the commission wants to do. I mean, I'm not a policymaker and I'm not a decision maker. I'm just trying to provide some advice and counsel. So, and then I think the goal will be to clean up any other issues with the lease, and then I think we want to review how the last RFP was advertised.
Yes.
Oddly enough, I was recently at I was at an engineering firm where they do a lot of construction, a lot of engineering. They just built themselves a brand new building, and I had brought up the issue that we were talking about, he was explaining to me they've been looking for land to develop. And I said, we've got this area here at the airport. And he actually didn't say he was interested, but he indicated that there was another firm that he is aware of that likes to do that type of a development. I don't even know if they saw that there was an opportunity. So I think we need to just at least know the publication process that we went through and make sure that we get a chance to maybe perhaps make a more robust publication of the opportunity to develop that area. Because we've got to create some competition so that we know that we're getting the best deal that we can get right now. And then the other speculation I advanced, and I'm going to call it what it is does anybody really know how planes are going to be fueled 10 years from now? Or maybe 20 years from now? I mean, we have such a big push for electronic vehicles at this point, and one of the biggest proponents of that is the federal government. What is the FAA going to start saying? Well, we've got this new technology for electric planes, and so fuel sales go out the door, but Unitil makes a ton of dough because they're pumping electricity into the Fitchburg Airport to charge planes. So, I mean, I think the immediate relief of having increased fuel sales is attractive, but I don't know that it's going to be like that for 60 years, and that's the other problem with the 60-year lease. We just don't know what the future is going to be. So those are the issues I think that that you guys should discuss and then to make a decision on.
Anyone else? Okay. We're going to move on. Item F, Hangar 10, new door.
The engineering drawings have been made available by Mackenzie Engineering. They've been sent to Macy's, which is the company that's producing the door, and also to the facilities director, Russ Karlstad. The gentleman at Macy's is on vacation. He'll be back after next week. So, I've looked at the drawings. They look excellent to myself as a mechanical engineer, but not a civil engineer. I'm sure they'll all go through and we will get our permission to go ahead with the door.
Mm-hmm.
So,
good. Doors for Hangar 2 and 3.
Matt covered that in his little talk to us.
We're waiting on
MassDOT. We're waiting MassDOT.
Item H, self-serve fuel transfer to and from truck.
We had Steve McDonald here last week. He's the gentleman that's actually doing the engineering on that, and he's promised to give us a quote by the end of this week, and then that can be forwarded to Gail to do the necessary with MassDOT.
Item I, minimum standards.
That's for you and the commission.
Did you receive comments from each of us?
I haven't received any comments from anybody. Not one person.
Okay, so I,
Maybe you did it, but you didn't send it to me.
okay,
I haven't received any.
all right. So I commented and I sent copies to everyone to comment and get back to you, so I'll follow up.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Item J, the Pete's Store.
I believe that's the same as it was the last time, so nothing's advanced on that. And I think the main thing here was the outcome of the airport master plan, even though Matt said that, you know, we could actually advertise that and use it until it's required for aviation purposes. But that's where it stands at the moment.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
I think Director Skorowski from the Planning Department weighed in on some zoning concerns that he had. And then there was some environmental concerns because I think his position was the area was not all going to be asphalt paved. There was going to be trucks stored on unpaved land. So there was some concern on that too. And with a license, they just pick up and go and they move along. 21E is the statute that passes or shares between property owners, environmental concerns which wouldn't attach to them. So there is some pushback inside City Hall. This one wasn't the solicitor's office. I want to let you know that. At least I pushed it through as quickly. Debbie came over to my office. She made me drop everything what I was doing and made me redraft this lease whether I wanted to or not, which I did. The license, I should say. And then there is some concern that's kicking around. So you've got a little undertow there.
Yes,
That might explain some delay too.
yes. Yeah, I mean, trucks have a lot of fuel, big fuel tanks, all sitting out there in the row. I don't know.
Even a good truck is going to leak something.
Yeah, correct.
So, I don't know how to resolve all that. Maybe just a meeting with the planning department
Yeah.
and Peter, but
All right, we're going to leave it on the old business as in progress, but
All right.
even slow progress is progress. All right, item K, Convergent Energy.
Well, that now opens up the door for Convergent Energy to take that full 12 acres of land then, because they are ready to come in here and give us a presentation on the battery packs that takes the energy at night.
Yes.
They buy it very cheap and then they keep it for the main high load areas and sell it at a profit. They are very, very happy to come, and they said, you know, to be fair to everybody, they don't want to come in here and give a presentation until the airport master plan is finalised. And they asked me when, and I said, hopefully by the end of March. And the way you're going, I think you will hit those days. So they will come in here in April and make a presentation. Not putting any pressure on you at all, but
Yeah, get to work. What are you doing tonight?
so
You know, I'm going to say something on this in a public forum. I would really like to see their business plan. I mean, selling electricity at wholesale prices is a losing game. And I don't understand how they could possibly make money by selling energy that they had to buy and store, and then they're going to resell again. I can't wrap my head around that.
well, they're doing it.
I mean, Pine Tree Power, or I don't know what their name is now, but they've been bought several times in the last 10 years, and nobody wants to buy them because
do
the
they do?
price of energy is so low. They burn wood products and make energy. And when they first started that project, they were making 10 times the amount of money that they are today because of the price of energy. So I guess they just take this as a warning or a precursor that I need to believe that their business plan is going to work. Because I'm not going to pay to have battery warehouses removed from the property because of the land, because they went bankrupt.
They're just big 40-foot containers.
Yeah. It still costs money to move.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So
Maybe we can try to, I don't know if it's select, I think it's Power Options. Maybe they could vet it for us a little bit or something. The problem with the solar, and I get it with the solar panel projects, we have one going on with the school right now, the power purchase agreements are over my head. I mean, I don't fully able to analyze them, and so we do rely on Power Options to vet those things for us. In fact, they're vetting that current one right now regarding price, it's some of the terms that are technical.
yes.
So I don't know, I'll talk to him at some point about that other project, and I could ask them about this, and just ask them if there's something that they can vet. Maybe they can dispel our suspicions or confirm them.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess-
I'm sure he'll be aware of it, Attorney Pusateri, because these people already have their units right next to solar farms, and they use that and buy it at the cheap rate and then sell it at the high rate.
Okay.
So
I
I'm
can
sure he'll be
understand
aware
that
of it.
concept.
Yeah,
But to
absolutely.
purchase it at night and sell it in the daytime, I don't know.
When do they want to make a presentation?
Yeah,
After Matt is done.
after
maybe
the airport
tomorrow.
master plan's completed.
Right.
I've been hearing about this master plan for years now.
Yeah. It's a unicorn. No, we're very happy with the master plan as, so far. All right, we're going to
Lucky we have the
end,
the Gale team with us again.
old business, financial review, approvals of commitments and abatements, anything we need to be aware of? Okay, thank you, Peter. Executive session, there is none at this time. Date and time of next regular meeting,
Just on this, that executive session, can we put an executive session on for your current tie-down situation? So we can have a more frank conversation about that? Is that something we want to do?
We can at the next meeting, can't we?
yeah, we definitely can't do it at this meeting.
No, but at the next one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's put it on, because I think we're going to have to make a choice, which way we're going to go.
Okay. You may want to consult the clerk's office exactly how we do that.
Yeah.
We just put it in.
You sure?
Yes.
You'll make a declaration that we're
Okay.
in negotiations.
Right. We just have to go out on the draft so that everybody knows.
Okay.
It's just,
I'm just not
yeah.
that familiar with the
Right.
process. Date and time of next regular meeting,
16th. March 16th.
I'm going to tentatively say March 16th, and,
But I thought you said everybody was moving in April.
well, that's what Dan said. But we just motioned to have it on the third Wednesday of every month from this point forward.
Well, we didn't give a time, did we? We said from, okay, well, yeah, whatever. I mean, I'll just issue.
I'm going to
the
say
draft.
March 16th.
Okay.
You got that? Oh, it's only a week. Just bumped it up a week. What's a week? Regular meeting adjourned at
7:31.
7:31. Thank you for coming, everyone.